Hey, actor friends. Michael Kostroff here. I'm currently working in theater, which is making me think of some topics that are theater specific. Um, and I'm working with some really great professionals. And I took note of the fact that there are certain topics that we just naturally avoid because these guys are really seasoned pros. And they are topics that in terms of the conversations that we have during rehearsals, and they're topics that less seasoned actors may fall prey to because they're very tempting. And these are topics that I call rehearsal poison, and yet they're very, very tempting. There are only two on my mind tonight. We may uncover more, and you may think of some in the comments. I just want to talk about two tonight. Um, you really should avoid any talk about salaries. And that includes not just talking about numbers, but dropping hints like, "Well, they're cheap on this production," or I couldn't believe how much they offered." These just Please avoid those conversations. You don't know what anybody else is making. Some people may be overpaid. Some people may be underpaid. Somebody's making less than you. Somebody's making more than you. It can only lead to bad feelings. And it's one of those third rail topics that you should just be smart enough to avoid. It's just off limits. And it's so easy to stumble into. But that's just the appetizer tonight. There's a conversation that tends to bubble up, and it's very interesting. It's very tempting when you're watching rehearsals or in rehearsals to think about how you would have fixed a moment better than the director. It's so tempting. I do that in my brain if I'm not careful. I have learned not to voice those thoughts. But I sometimes do have to walk away and just remind myself that it's not my job because it's a puzzle and we like to fix it. But a less experienced or less seasoned actor easily falls prey to the temptation of a conversation that often begins with three words: "Don't you think?" Don't you think that would work better if she entered on the line? Don't you think if she was that mad, she wouldn't be just waiting by the door? Um, you know, um, don't you think he should be loud enough that like the whole room would go? And I've really been thinking about why is that so tempting? Why? It's like actor kryptonite. The generous answer is that we're creatives. We're creatives and we like to solve those puzzles. That's the more generous answer. The less generous answer is we want to show off how much better we would be at this than the director, which serves no value, trust me. Trust me. I really can't emphasize this enough because you might, for the moment, you might even run across somebody who goes, "Yeah, that would be better." You've just dropped poison in the water. It's never going to be good for morale. You've just dropped a little bit of deterioration in the water. You've started to deteriorate the company opinion of the director. I promise you there is no good result in that, even if the director is bad. Yes, I said it. Even if the director is bad, calling attention to that with your better ideas can only create bad feelings because guess what? That person's still the director. So all it can add is a growing sense of frustration or disappointment or resentment in the cast. What it will not lead to is a better show or better direction. It won't make the director better. It's not going to get anybody to replace the director. It's only going to create this monster, this growing monster of, it's so poisonous and yet so tempting. So tempting. Um, and I don't know why we do it exactly. I think maybe it is to just show off how smart we are. Or maybe it's just to scratch an itch. I've got to tell somebody. This is driving me crazy. I got to tell somebody. This doesn't make sense. I can appreciate all of this. I don't want to be too critical because my brain goes to the same problem solving fix it. That's off. It's like an OCD thing where it's like, oh, that's not the right answer. But I have learned to edit. It's the same as somebody going, like let's say there's a fight scene, and if somebody goes and says, "Well, do you think it should be like 2 hits?" and I'm like, well, the fight director will tell us, and just don't get into that conversation. Protocols are very important in the theater for the sake of efficiency, for the sake of safety, for the sake of good getting along, good working relationships. Because, as I said, even when you find somebody who agrees with you, that they've clocked a negative feeling about you on some level, and it's bad for relationships, which is very important in theater. And yeah, I don't want you to think that that this is all a commercial, but yes, I'm going to plug the book that I co-wrote with Julie Garnier called the Stage Actor's Handbook. I'll put a picture of it here. Yeah, I cannot tell you strongly enough. This is not to promote book sales. If I hadn't written it with Julie, I would still be plugging it because it is all these little nuanced things of how to the established ideas and protocols and accepted norms of how we work together and get along that I wish I had because it would have saved me a lot of embarrassment, bad feelings, and potentially bad things that actually did get a little bit of bad reputation for a minute because I stepped on toes. And it's if you are newer to the theater or you know somebody who is, this is the book that lays all this stuff out because it can be a little bit delicate. It can be a little bit delicate. I mean, it really kind of comes down to stay in your lane or keep your thoughts to yourself. But anyway, yeah, that's what was on my mind tonight. I just really want to take care of you in this way and caution you against giving voice to your very, very smart ideas about how the show should be directed. You know what I say when somebody says to me, don't you think she should come in earlier? I always say, that is such a good idea. If you ever direct this show, you should make sure that you do that. I beg of you, don't give voice to those. Oh, there's one more thing. Once morale starts to unravel, it doesn't tend to ravel back, to re-ravel. It tends to continue in that direction. And if this is rehearsal, it will, one of the great reasons for not damaging or poisoning morale. Do you want to be in the run of a show that's going to get worse and worse and the relationships are going to get less and less pleasant? Don't be that person. Just don't be that person. Trust me. Okay. All right, pros. All right, theater pros. Tuck that lesson away in your pocket, please. Comments. Tell me anything else that we should avoid talking about when we're in rehearsal. I'm lucky enough to be working with a stellar cast of pros that doesn't talk about this stuff. All right, friends. I'll circle back next week with more thoughts. Can't wait to hear yours. Bye.